good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, based on where you're joining in from today. My name is Sushant Sawant, and I represent DelphianLogic's frontline sales and account management team, and I'll be your host for the day. On behalf of DelphianLogic, I would like to sincerely thank each one of you to give us your time today, and we're super excited to present our latest offering, KnowledgeQuest game. But before we begin, I would like to spend a few minutes on the event flow and the platform which we'll be using for the event today. We will start we will start off with a brief message from our CEO, Mr. Saurabh Ganguly, followed by the main presentation of our latest offering, and then we will have a dedicated time for the Q&A. With regards to the platform, you will see a center stage where you'll find all the presentation and the speakers. On the right hand side, you will have all the controls that you can use to interact with us and the presenters. I'd like to draw your attention to a few of these controls which we'll be using actively throughout the event. So starting off with the chat panel, where you can post any of your general or technical questions around the agenda or the platform, and my technical team will address them for you. In regards to the Q&A panel, I would request you to post any of your questions with regards to the offering and the presentation, that you might have during or after, and then we will basically take all these questions at the Q&A time. We will also be posting a poll, in the poll area during the presentation to make the session a little more interactive, and we'd like to have your participation in that. And finally, you have the raise hand functionality that you can find on the right top of your presentation area, which you can raise which you can use basically during the Q&A time to verbally ask your questions or provide any feedback that you might have. With that, let's inaugurate this event with our CEO's note.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this very special event to celebrate the launch of a new offering, KnowledgeQuest. We are also celebrating 10 years of DelphianLogic and a decade of our growth from a small company of a few believers to a name that is known and trusted by some of the largest organizations in this world, just like yours. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you for supporting us and for continuing to support us in this journey. This has been an exciting decade, and with you by our side, we have traveled far. And you know what? This is just the beginning. Right now, we are at the cusp of change. The whole world is changing, and so is learning. From how it is planned, to how it is delivered, and to how it is designed, and most importantly, to how it is consumed. That for most of us, if not all, the last year and a half has been a whirlwind of transformation. I want you to know that DelphianLogic remains committed to stay a few steps ahead of the curve, regardless of how the learning landscape shapes up. In the next decade of our growth, or DelphianLogic 2.0 as we like to call it, we have fixed our aim firmly on bringing you learning solutions and offerings that are modern, engaging, relevant, and most importantly, sustainable. KnowledgeQuest is the first of these offerings, and this event is all about it. So sit back, enjoy the curtain raiser. Feel free to ask questions and do join in our celebrations. On behalf of everyone at DelphianLogic, I welcome you once more. Thank you.
So I think that was quite inspirational and motivational from Saurabh. Thank you so much. Then moving on, allow me to introduce you to today's speakers. So we have with us Lisa, Reena, and Manish. All of them have been a part of the DelphianLogic journey since its inception. All of them are extremely experienced, knowledgeable in their respective areas of expertise or field of expertise, as well as the overall L&D space. What's more is that they have played a pivotal role in the design, development, and launch of the KnowledgeQuest game. So who better than them to present that to you? Finally, we also have Julian Vonger on the call with us. He's the VP of Sales at DelphianLogic. And he, along with myself, we will be supporting the presenters to respond to any specific questions during the Q&A time. So without any further ado, let's go on to the main presentation.
Thank you, Sushant. Before we begin, I'd like to request you to go into full screen mode. So there's a little full screen button on the top right-hand corner of the presentation. You'd get best view of the visuals that we've put together with that view. Okay, so I'd like to start our presentation today by taking a short trip down memory lane. School is out, the days are warm and long and filled with promise. How did you fill the hours? What games swept into your lives and took over every minute of your day until maybe the next adventure came along? I have no idea what proportion of my life has been spent playing games, but I imagine it's a pretty hefty amount. From the simple, quick games that we played when the teacher stepped out of class, to the multi-hour strategy games that grew and evolved and took a new life form until the group finally broke up. Most of the times it was because people didn't want to play with me because I won too often, or my brother because he cheated too much. But the feel of games, the emotion of winning is something that I don't think we'll ever forget. Games have been an escape into different worlds. It's been a social interaction where you have to wheel and deal to kind of make your mark. You get to use your creative outlet. You get to create, you get to convince. There are so many dynamics at play when we play games that it has a different emotion attached to it for all of us. And games that are purely played for the fun of it have intrinsic benefits that we never thought about when we were actually playing. We honed our reflexes, we strengthened our memory, we built motor skills and hand-eye coordination, we even enhanced our vocabulary. And through it all, we learned continuously. We memorized game rules and components. We learned how to use them to actually play the game. And then we learned how to manipulate them to win. We developed strategies and then adapted them according to whether we were winning or losing and what other people were doing in the game. We calculated our resources and how to get the best use of them. Or we just winged it and learned how to deal with failure. But we did all this purely for the joy and fun of it. When DelphianLogic took up the challenge to create a learning board game, our goal was to create an offering that could capture this joy and excitement of gameplay and harness it to create better learning experiences. But the second goal that we had was that we wanted to create a game where the content and the learning is an integral part of the game, not something that just comes before or after the gameplay. And the other goal that we had was to create game mechanics that could actually encourage learning, rather than the game mechanics being focusing on engagement and then the learning happening separately. It was a tall ask of ourselves, but we tapped into our collective experiences designing learning for over 15 years each. We brainstormed and we argued our way into a learning game that we felt finally met all of these requirements that we had. And now I'd like to introduce you to the KnowledgeQuest game from DelphianLogic. This is a browser-based online learning game that can be shared using a web link or deployed on any LMS. We currently support SCORM and XAPI, which cover a majority of learning management systems. If you have another requirement, please let us know because I'm sure we can figure that out. So let's take a look at how the game actually works. So you start off by selecting your game character and token. The DelphianLogic version that we've created as a demo has a Star Wars theme. Since we wanted to have something that was easily recognizable and fun, the added bonus here was that we didn't really need to do any research to get our content and pairings right, because we had in-house subject matter expertise on this. The opponent is auto-selected based on traditional rivalry or a randomized option, depending on what the theme is. And then it's time to play. This is the main gameplay area. Does the board look familiar? The key difference here is, rather than playing to be a property magnet, the goal of the game is to acquire knowledge assets and build your knowledge base through the game. We all know that knowledge is power, right? The dice controls the gameplay and turns alternate between the player and the opponent. We do have different animations and effects that have been used for the dice and the movement across the board, but we decided to leave something for the demo version. So we're going to be offering you the opportunity to play the game after this, and we will show you the effects once we get there. Just give me one moment. Sorry, my phone just locked with my notes. So when you land on a knowledge block, you can choose to acquire it. That's when you actually get access to the pieces of learning. So this is where the actual learning happens, and we've tried to make sure that each piece of information has its own space to breathe and for you to go through it effectively. So you can choose from a variety of formats for each information nugget. We can embed videos from YouTube or another source. We have a lot of different text and visual options and layouts. We've just shown you a few over here from our demo version of the game. We also have different interactive options where you can click to view different pieces of information in different layouts. When we designed the game, we purposely decided against any kind of time pressure because we wanted to encourage the learners to read and absorb the information rather than running through it quickly to get to the next thing. We also have space for links to additional resources that can be shared along with the primary content. So how do you actually acquire knowledge assets? Obviously with money. So you start off with 1,000 quest coins, and then there are different ways that you can add into your kitty. So if you look at the right-hand corner, that's where your money balance is, and you and your opponent go on adding money that you can use to acquire knowledge assets. So of course, you get 200 coins every time you pass start. But you can also earn money by answering questions correctly in challenges using the knowledge that you acquire. And then there are lottery cards, but that's a double-edged sword because you could win money, but you could also lose money depending on the luck of the draw. Then we have a lot of other elements that add interest through the game. So if you land on the containment zone, you're stuck in there until you prove that you are worthy to be let out, again, by answering questions correctly. A lucky roll will let you jump to the next available knowledge block. You get a bonus when you acquire the last block in a topic, along with a quick recap of the topic learning points. Plus, we have random bonuses to bring back the momentum if the gameplay starts slowing down, or if people are not able to kind of acquire enough of knowledge blocks. We try and bring the momentum back with our bonuses. The game ends when the last knowledge block has been bought, either by you or your opponent. And the cup is won based on the value of the knowledge assets and money that you've collected through the game. And once all the knowledge blocks have been unlocked through the game, you can come back at any point of time and you get an unlocked board. So over here, you can look at all the different topics that are available to you. You can quickly click and access that piece of knowledge if you need a quick recap. So this is not just a one-time walkthrough, it's available later on as well. In our user testing, a majority of players took between 45 to 60 minutes to complete the game. There were some who did it in 30 minutes, but we're pretty sure that they were speed reading. The learning duration will also depend on the number of knowledge blocks that you have through the game. So right now we have 20 knowledge blocks in our demo version that you can see on the screen. So there are 20 knowledge blocks, and then you also have challenge and lottery blocks interspersed. You can choose to have up to 25 knowledge blocks depending on the topics and the amount of content that you need to cover. So now that you've taken a look at the overall game design, we wanted to walk you through it, but we don't want to spend too much of time on it. We're also going to let you actually experience this later on. We'd like to hear your opinion of whether this game could work as an effective learning tool and in which areas. So if you can exit full screen right now, we've put up a poll in the right-hand panel in the poll section. So just go ahead. You can click as many options as you want. Please feel free to let us know if you think any of these areas would work. We're happy to look at others as well. And if you say others, we would also like to hear which others you think could work in the chat section. So we're looking for ideas as well. So I'm going to give it a minute for people to put in their responses. You can look at the poll section and you can see what people are responding as well. So far it looks like onboarding training is taking the lead. And we definitely agree with that. So, onboarding training is definitely right in the front. And yes, originally, the first thing that we did think of when we designed this train actually was onboarding training. Because when you have the knowledge blocks, it can work really well to present different types of information that is, discrete pieces. So you could have, information about the organization, structures, roles, policies, do's and don'ts, procedures, and so on. And it really works very well as onboarding training. And this we can definitely vouch for. Product training is the next one over here. And yes, it definitely works for product training as well. So you could have key features, offerings, customer personas, sales practices, objection handling. And each of these, again, are discrete, independent pieces of information that could be presented through this game. Compliance training would also work, not maybe on an application level where you want to give them scenarios and have them practice different techniques, but on an information level, compliance training would work to share main points of policies or takeaways of policies and regulatory requirements and so on. Change management is the last one over here with not too many votes, but again, change management could work in certain areas. So say you have a lot of data and information to back the need for the change or the impact of change. It could also work well over here. So essentially, any information that has discrete chunks and is more knowledge or information driven, any training that is knowledge driven could be presented well using this game. Application level training where, you need to explain concepts and then have practice and reinforcement and so on is not best suited for this game. So let's get down to brass tacks now. What do you get if you decide to acquire this game? So we will use our game framework, to prepare an LMS-ready custom iteration of the KnowledgeQuest game with your content and branding. Our proprietary game framework and game engine allows us to create customized iterations of the game quickly and easily, and at a much lower cost than would be required to develop a custom game from scratch. So let me walk you through some of the setup features that we have available using this framework. So to start off with, as a base setup, we will customize the board layout itself based on the number of topics and knowledge screens in your content. So we'll create a final grid, lay out the knowledge blocks, define what are the topics, and then also add in the challenges and the lottery blocks in between to kind of have a good flow of information. The next thing that we can do is customize the color scheme and themes to align with your branding requirements. So we're not just talking about we're going to put your logo in there and that's it. We can actually, we've already got actually a variety of backgrounds across light and dark themes that we can use based on your branding colors. For example, if green works well with your primary brand colors, you could choose a minty green, which is the one we're showing you if you want a light one, or what we call the gritty green if you want a darker theme. You can also choose to go with a photograph background, and we're showing you one that is nature-based. It could depend on your theme of your learning. It could be an organization kind of background. So we have quite a few options, and this is already kind of in the play in the back end. So it's very easy for us to kind of just customize this and change this for you. As part of our launch offering specifically, we will also create one set of customized tokens for you based on your organization or learning theme. So we already have a couple of sets of tokens available with the current version, but we are happy to do one for our initial launch customers. We could do key roles. We could do different like memorable features of your campus, of your organization. There are lots of different options that we can go with. On the content side, we will integrate the content that you give us into the different formats that we've talked about, videos, different layouts, interactive options. We'll also create a question bank. So we can put the questions into the question bank, and that automatically randomizes the questions across challenges, the containment zone, and so on. So as part of our launch, we are offering a perpetual license that provides unlimited access to the game package created for you for an unlimited number of users. The game setup that we've listed over here is the setup based on all the different options that we've discussed, including content integration across the formats. You can choose to provide us with all the content, and then we can just integrate it into the game. Or you can add on instructional and visual design services to collate, structure, and design the content for each of the pieces if you're looking for a hassle-free end-to-end development option. We can also add on support and maintenance services for a quick turnaround of content updates and technical support. So before we move into the Q&A session, I'd like to ask you a question now. So we've gone through the features overall. We've tried not to elaborate on it too much or go into all the technical nitty-gritties, but we've tried to give you an overview. So we wanted to ask you, what would you like to see in this game offering? Do you have specific features or technical requirements that you would like to see? Please type anything that you think of in the chat. You can type it now, you can type it later on when it occurs to you. We do have a roadmap that we've already planned for this offering. So we're thinking of multi-language and localized versions of the game where you can, have this in different languages. One of our other options is responsive layouts for small screen devices. We also have been thinking about editability of content, where you can edit the content yourself easily and quickly. So we've got different options that we're planning to work on in the future, but it really depends on what is priority for our customers. So we'd like to hear your thoughts. And also, this game has been completely developed in-house. The entire team is part of DelphianLogic. So if we do need to customize something, or if there's something that you specifically need for yourself, for a specific requirement, we can always work on custom features for you. So that's where we're at right now. We look forward to your feedback in the chat. And I'm going to hand over to Sushant now to take over for the Q&A session.
Thank you, Lisa. I hope the presentation was something that helped you understand what the offering is. What we'd like to do now is open up the Q&A. So as I'd mentioned before, you could use the Q&A box or the panel to post your questions, or you could raise your hand so that you could ask your question verbally. I already have a couple of questions in the chat that I'll ask to start off with. But in the meantime, while these questions are being responded, I would urge you to ask any other questions via the Q&A panel or the raise hand or the chat. So the first question comes from Paulo, and he asks, is it possible to change the rewards, change money or something to something different? Can we basically manage to change the money aspect, how money is given out and configured in our game? So I think, Lisa, you could answer that.
Yes. Thank you, Sushant. So I'm not very sure what you would want to change it to. So the way that the game mechanics that we've designed, we've gone through quite a few custom iterations to see what would work to kind of bring that balance between the gameplay and the learning. So right now, the way that we've done it is we've called it Quest Coins. We can absolutely call it something else. It's just a virtual form of the reward of what you're getting and what you're paying for acquiring the knowledge. So Paolo, if you would be interested, I would love to hear what you would be thinking of in terms of what else we could use as well. So I don't think we have the option to just add people. So if you raise your hand, then Sushant can bring you on, or maybe later on as well. If you can elaborate on that, we are looking at different ideas of how we could increase the appeal of this game as well.
So Paulo has raised his hand, and I've invited him to the stage.
Okay, thank you, Sushant. Thank you, Lisa, for your presentation. I'm not thinking about something specifically, but I work for FAO, which is a UN organization, so we don't like to use money as reward, so I'm not thinking in something specific, but I don't know, we can invent something like, I don't know, you will be like the master of, this kind of about agroecology. You will be the master of agroecology if you
Sure.
finish the game, or I mean, we can invent anything to reward.
So Paolo, if I can then take that. So we don't treat this as actually money. So what we've called it is Quest Coins so far. So if you don't feel like coins is even the best term, then we can call it something else that would be Quest assets or something. So it's basically that you acquire these assets as you prove your knowledge and you do things and you go through challenges, and then you use those assets to buy more knowledge. So it's more of your knowledge power that you're acquiring. So it's not very, commercially oriented, but there is that little overlap with the base, some of the gameplay from Monopoly. So we have got some of those concepts going as well.
Great. Yeah, no, that's it. If we can manage to change how we call it,
that's great feedback. So we can absolutely adjust that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paulo. The next question comes from Cindy, and she asks, after the initial receipt and deployment of the game, are we able to update or modify the questions and the content themselves? So I think we partially responded to that as part of the roadmap, but Lisa, maybe you want to take that up?
Yes, sure. So yes, Cindy, that is in our roadmap. We currently don't have the option for the customers to update and edit the content themselves. It's actually one of our priority items. So if we do see a lot of interest, we could even roll that out shortly in a few months' time. Really, right now, what we do is after the initial content integration, we do have a support and maintenance package with defined SLAs. So you can just send us any specific update requirements and we can turn that around within a very defined framework of 1 or maximum 2 days, depending on the complexity of the request. Does that answer your question, or is there anything more that you'd like to add on that, Cindy?
So in fact, Lisa, Cindy's follow-up question was around the support, support and maintenance. So I hope, Cindy, that answered your question. Thank you, Cindy. So yeah, so the next question is from Emma, and then she asks, the main feature of the organization would be that we can use it, autonomously. That is, a number of staff members can develop a number of games. She further asks, it would need to be pretty, intuitive to customize the game. That is so people wouldn't need lots of support.
Okay. So Emma, right now the way that we do this is that we would develop each iteration for you. So we can absolutely create multiple iterations, but what we are currently offering is a license to use a specific iteration. So you can acquire multiple licenses and then have multiple iterations for one organization. But for us, each one will be a separate iteration that we would create for you with your content, with the customization and so on. So right now we would be doing that customization element. Again, in the future, we do plan to enable editability and customization directly by our customers. But again, it would be for a single iteration. So we've not really created this as, a per organization product or offering. It's per iteration. But in terms of usage or deployment, you can deploy it for as many learners as is required. There's no limitation on that, and you can use it for as long as you would like. Again, there's no time limit on using the license.
So I'll take up the next question from the Q&A panel. This is from Eric. And Eric asks about the customization, the possibility of customization of the game. So maybe Lisa, you can take that up also.
Sure. So Eric, we can do up to 25 game blocks, which is actually the knowledge blocks. On top of that, we can have, challenges and lottery and so on. Anything more than that, we've tried it out, but then the game board gets really crowded and you don't really get a good experience out of it. Or you can do anything less than that. I wouldn't suggest less than, say, 16, but between 60 to 25, it's completely open, and it can be distributed across topics however you require. So even if you want to just have one topic, everything's interconnected, we can do that, or we can split it up into multiple topics. Does that answer your question in terms of the numbers? I'm not 100% sure I've answered your question correctly.
So we'll wait to hear Eric's response to that. But in the meantime, he has a follow-up question, which is around the pricing, basically, and the pricing for customization, rather.
Sure. So Eric, right now the base pricing includes the perpetual license and the game setup, which comes to $15,000 in all. If you want the instructional and visual design services, I think the total would come to somewhere between $25,000 to $30,000, but it would depend on the readiness of your content and the level of design that you're looking at. So if you're looking at, a lot of animations, maybe custom designed videos, that would be a higher cost. If you're looking at more text, visuals, infographics and so on, then that would be lower. So the base price is set. The instructional and visual design services is something that we'll scope out specifically for you. So if you have a requirement, we can have a follow-up discussion and give you a exact quote after that based on your content.
Thank you, Lisa. There are a couple of questions in the chat box, and they're very similar. So one is from Vanessa, and the other is from Herbert, and they want to basically ask if this is a multiplayer game, or actually if this can be a multiplayer game. So Manish, would you like to take that question?
Sure. So right now it is not multiplayer game. You play with the computer itself. So based on what character you select, the token you select, we auto generate a token against which you kind of play the game. We are thinking in direction of to have multiplayer as one of the options for the game. Right now, we were thinking in this direction, but why we chose as a single player is something because we thought that in terms of usage, for example, onboarding, etc., it would be quite difficult to kind of gather. At the same time, you probably need to have people to play this game, right? So that is the reason why we started with single player. But yes, multiplayer is on the cards.
Thank you, Manish. I hope that question was well answered. At the moment, we do not have any more questions that I see in the chat. Maybe, yeah. So I think there's another one that's come in the Q&A section, and I'll post it on the stage. So yeah, so I think this is directed to Lisa. If you could take up this question, this is around what kind of inputs are required from the customer for developing this game.
Sure. So essentially, you could if you go with just the base setup cost, then we would need you to provide us with the topics specifically and the content for each of the knowledge blocks. So you can think of it like approximately the amount of content you would put on one screen of content, and any additional reading links. And then what we would do is we would take them, we would put them into the correct layout or the appropriate layout. We can even see if they lend themselves to interactive layouts and so on. Then we can use the variety of content presentation options that we have across the knowledge blocks and then deploy it for you. We can absolutely embed videos. So videos that are available on maybe your company YouTube channel or any other format can directly be embedded into the game as well.
Thank you, Lisa. There's another question from Alex, and it's basically around if this game is available to play on a mobile device. So Manish, if you could take that.
Sure. So right now we are supporting iPad and other tablets as well as desktop computers as well to play this game. In terms of whether it can be played on mobile, yes, it can be played. It's just that it is not optimized for the mobile devices. So in the next version, we are working on layouts which would properly work on mobile devices. So yes, it's on the cards, and we would definitely work towards it.
Thank you, Manish. There's a follow-up question from Eric, and I'll put that on stage. It's around the pricing again. So maybe Lisa, you could take this up.
Sure. So it is a fixed cost. So the license allows an unlimited number of participants. Essentially, the license is per iteration of the game. So the license allows you to use one iteration of the game, and it can be deployed wherever. It's an unlimited usage license in terms of time as well as users. So that is actually one of the things that we're offering in our launch. This might change over time, but right now this is what we're offering for our launch.
Thank you, Lisa. I hope, Eric, that answers your question. We have a follow-up question and it's around the design and deployment of the game. So Lisa, you may take this up.
Sure. So because we've already got our game engine and framework in place, if you have all your content ready and you can give it to us, it could take us up as little as 2 weeks to have the entire LMS version ready for you. If you do need content design and development services, then that would add to the time frame. So it depends on the content readiness, but on our side, we're quite ready to put it together and deploy it, give you a SCOM package that you can deploy.
Thank you, Lisa. There's another question in the chat box from Malini, and she wants to ask if there's a specific impact on the performance of the game based on the number of users that are playing the game. So Manish, maybe you want to take that up? Manish, you have put off your mic. Maybe you want to unmute yourself.
So sorry. So yeah, again, it's not a multiplayer game as of now. So when you actually deploy it on the LMS, each user kind of plays within his own session itself. So in terms of efficiency, it doesn't really decrease how many number of users you have for the LMS at least. If you're deploying on the web link as well, it doesn't really consume much resources if you deploy it as a web link. So yes, I mean, you could have multiple players to actually kind of take this game simultaneously and can play this game, so that there won't be an issue as such.
Thank you, Manish. So I don't see any more questions popping up. Oh, sorry. There's another one from Survi in the chat box. And she asks, can the game be incorporated as an assessment within a SCOM package? So maybe Manish, you can take that too.
Yes, definitely. So yes, we could definitely include it as an assessment within an existing SCOM package. So the way we have kind of devised this and the framework that we are kind of using it can work as a standalone package. It could go on your internet in your existing SCOM as well. So for example, if you have a storyline course, you could also add this as one of the elements within the course itself. So yes, the answer is yes for this.
Thanks, Manish. There's again a follow-up.
If we could also just, I think maybe elaborate on the analytics that we could get out of the game. I think, Manish, that would help to answer the question from the other side as well.
Sure, Lisa. So yeah, thanks. You brought that topic. So in terms of analytics and when you actually deploy it on the LMS as a SCOM package 1.2 or 2.4 or any SSA package or XAPI, because the current game supports all these mechanisms or all these LMS formats. You could track all the details that you can regularly track with any kind of any SCOM package. For example, you track your entire progress. You track who is taking the game, the overall score, because within the game itself we do have some kind of challenge questions. So you could track those as well. The game is bookmarkable. It saves your progress, so you don't really need to take this entire game within one session. You could take half of the game in one session and then continue it later on. So it's a self-paced game as well. Within SCOM 2.4, it also tracks all your quiz level details, and with XAPI or TinCan, it tracks much more. For example, where you have reached, how you have reached, and all those details are readily trackable.
Thank you, Manish. There's another question from Eric, and Eric basically asks, if we can share a proof of concept with them. I'll take that up. So Eric, after the session, we will provide you a link to the demoable game, so you can of course test it out and kind of play around with it.
And just to add, so this is a DelphianLogic demo that we've created with content that was only created to share it as a proof of concept. So we're glad you asked the question.
So there's another question that's come up, and this is it asks basically, if we can get support from DelphianLogic to be able to map their requirements to the game, or would we expect to kind of map the provide a more structured content for this game? So maybe Lisa, you can take this up.
Yes. So the quick answer is yes, of course. We have this is our core service area in terms of instructional design expertise and creating learning structures and learning approaches. So we can absolutely do that. We wanted to give our customers both options if they have ready content that we just integrated, but we can absolutely provide that level of support and instructional design services as well.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm just checking if we have more questions. I think there's one in the Q&A that just popped up. Yeah, so this is more technical, and maybe Manish can take this up. And this is around an LMS, or basically how we can deploy the game. So Manish, we can't hear you again.
Sorry again. So it is not really mandatory to have an LMS to host it. Like I mentioned, it is available as an LMS package, or it can be hosted on your internal web as an internal web link as well. So it just needs a space where you could probably put these HTML files. It doesn't really require any server-side setup as such. So it could work on any web server where you could host this as HTML files. So yeah, it would work.
So before people leave, and I noticed that maybe some people already have some commitments to leave, what we would really like to see from you as well is any priority features that you feel would be important for us to kind of move forward, as well as any feedback of the game itself. We would love that if you could just put any thoughts in the chat, or if you'd like to share that as well. If you just raise your hand, we'd be happy to have you share your feedback with us. We're really looking for some initial impressions, because this was also our first launch outside of what we've been creating for the past few months.
Thank you, Lisa, for that note. We have another question from Alex, and it's a technical question around the LMS packaging. So Manish, could you take that up? And you're again on mute.
Okay, it has happened. So yes, so it is a SCOM version, and it is a self-contained SCOM package as such. It doesn't really interact with any additional servers as such for analytics. So all the data is reported back to the LMS, but we do have an XAPI version as well. So this data can be reported back to the LRS as well to get further reports around what is happening as an analytics data. If there's a requirement to probably connect to a separate server, for example, Power BI or somewhere within the database, we could do that as well. So technically, it should be possible. But in its current form, the SCOM package itself is self-contained.
Thanks, Manish. And Emma is actually asking in the chat, if there's a prototype that is available that she can play. And yes, Emma, we will share a link with you for the demoable version of the game, and you can, of course, experience it and play it by yourself. Great. So I do not see any more questions popping up anywhere. Nevertheless, I mean, if there are still any questions, we have around 10 minutes to go. Please feel free to ask, or even if anybody wants to kind of come onto the stage, take the mic and provide maybe some initial feedback that they might, have about the game or what we have presented today, or any questions. So we'll just wait for a minute if anybody is interested to kind of come on and say a few words. Great. Looks like that's it for now. There are no further questions that I see. So just to conclude this and wrap it up, as I was mentioning earlier, also as the next step, we will be sharing with you a link to the demo, which you can actually experience and play. And along with it, we'll also be sharing a features, brochure of the game. Of course, if there are further questions, you can definitely reach out to your primary points of contact in DelphianLogic. to set up a discussion or a call and discuss this further. Of course, if there are any queries on the technical side of things, on the design side of things, on the content side of things, we can have a separate call to kind of discuss that. For now, once again, I'd like to sincerely thank everybody who was part of this session today. This was a first for us. This was a very new medium, how we were reaching out to our customers, our partners, and we'd like to hear from you, maybe over email or some other medium. How did you kind of like this, and if this is something that we should continue moving forward. So for now, thank you so much for your time once again, and have a good day, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you very much.